meeting is still continuing from downstairs, so not even call to order. Verification of quorum. We have 4 trustees present. I want to say thank you to the community for being willing to stay up so late. It's been a long day for all of us, and appreciate you being here. Okay, let's have a pledge of allegiance. If you'd stand with us. I pledge allegiance. As this is a special meeting, there is no public comment. And we have
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Banducci.
I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda as agreed to when we originally started open session downstairs. Mr. McMorro has expressed a sense of urgency to share with the board due to the critical timing and high importance of the sharing of this information by our legal counsel. I make the following motion. To amend the agenda to add the following action discussion item. Legal counsel briefing / concerns / issues and board responses.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second. If you give me time to write that down.
I can give it to you. I've got it scrawled here. It's in mostly English.
Is it that read the action discussion items again?
Okay, it's the actual action discussion item is legal counsel briefing / concerns / issues and board responses.
Okay. And I guess we can put your name by that, if that's fine.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, well, where is that going in the discussion topic?
I would suggest probably last.
Okay, we'll do
Stay in
that
order
last.
the way we're at.
Okay.
Because it was
I
last.
have a pen. That's, hold on, we gotta vote. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I have, no, I think this topic is pertinent myself. Only discussion I'll say. Having no discussion.
The only thing that I would add again is that I think a full board would be nice to have, and it's a disappointment that Trustee Corco cannot be present, and I know he certainly would like to, and I just wish that he had been here.
Okay. Let's call for the vote. Those, wait.
This is just for amending the agenda.
Mhm.
Amending the agenda. Okay. Okay. And you stated the reason why?
I did.
Would you, okay, if you stated it, then let's call for the vote. All those in affirmative of amending the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay.
I said aye.
Oh, you said aye. 3 ayes. Excellent. Okay. 3 ayes for amending.
Oh, you.
I would vote if indeed. Let's see. Okay, so if the topic of discussion is provost hiring, I believe no further discussion is required at this time unless fellow trustees wish to say something. Trustee Banducci.
Oh, I think just for the edification of those in the audience, we probably ought to just remind everybody that downstairs we had the opportunity on Zoom to speak to the 3 finalists, approximately 15 minutes each. We asked them a series of questions. got to know them a little bit, and so that was the purpose of that. And then we're continuing to review their package and their information. That's probably all that needs to be shared at this time.
No. Okay, and without objection, we'll move on to the next topic, action discussion of security topics. And I believe I wrote something down to say. It was, we just want to assure the community that we have been briefed on this topic, and all board members are actively interested in security at NIC. So, all right. Without objection, we're moving on to the next topic of the cyber incident. And again, board members have been briefed on this topic, and more information following soon. And any trustees, without objection, we're going to move on to action discussion of board resolutions. And these were included in the board packet to provide any other trustees who an opportunity to have more discussion on them. It's been a very long night. They passed Monday. They're they're in effect, and I think with regards to resolutions in the board packet, the governor came out with a statement that no legal counsel was provided. So, and no one else has provided an opinion contrary. So any newspaper articles implying that open meeting violations are violated seem to have an agenda. All right, without any other fellow trustees?
Chair, I would like to speak if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
I'm not really concerned what anybody else has to say on this open meeting law, except for what I'm going to say.
Sure.
I really believe that open meeting law has been violated. And I'm speaking regarding especially 2022-03, but also the other 2022-04. It is refreshing to note that Chairman McKenzie, Trustee Banducci, and Trustee Wagner have done a 180 and now acknowledge the accreditation risk that the college has been facing is actually a risk, and that it continues to face that risk under a status warning. I believe open meeting law has been violated. This resolution specifically that I'm talking about has identified legal counsel, and that it says the resolution states the Board of Trustees has identified legal counsel and that it believes it is capable to the accreditation tasks and schedule. What meeting occurred where the trustees identified legal counsel? There was no such legal meeting to identify replacement counsel. Selecting an attorney to replace Mark Lyons is a tall order. I have neither seen a resume nor any documentation regarding why Mr. McComber is qualified to hold this important position. Mr. McComber wrote these resolutions, and he wrote his own fee agreement. He walked in and was hired on the spot. Who gets to do that? Our community expects more from the Board of Trustees. There was an opportunity to recommend Mr. McComber and for the board to deliberate. It would have not caused any harm to consider a few candidates. This would have provided an opportunity for the new board to work together for the common good. North Idaho College is in a warning status, and actions taken at the last meeting, such as violations of open meeting laws, call for an attorney that can guide the trustees so as to not commit such violations, rather than to facilitate them, as Mr. McComber did. NIC needs an attorney and legal counsel that has experience in collegiate law and working through accreditation issues. Considering the fact that no resume has been produced, and after reading some recent communications from Mr. McComber, I am left with the impression he lacks the necessary experience and qualifications to represent the board and the college through this very tenuous process of working to move out of the warning status from the NWCCU. The trustees should interview several qualified candidates to fill the vacancy left by Mark Lyons. I would like to make a motion immediately to begin the process of searching for qualified candidates.
Is there a second? While we wait for that second, I would just like to say, is the college accreditation at risk? If you believe that this community would elect trustees that do not care about retaining accreditation, if you think that there was a choice between trustees, that some trustees would get elected and would not care about retaining accreditation, I can guarantee, let me phrase it a different way. All trustees who were candidates at this past election are absolutely dedicated at retaining accreditation. You have everyone on this board, and even the one person who's not, who is fully interested in retaining accreditation, and that has been our full focus and discussion topics, and we are interested in resolving all concerns that the accreditation agency has.
Chair McKenzie, may I speak again, please?
It didn't really go to discussion, so you didn't really get a second on the motion. So, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
And I would say that maybe I would even offer a second to go to discussion if you included F to hear from Mr. McLemore and during executive session, but obstructing this board repeatedly and trying to delay schedules, I'm tired of it. It's been 2 years of that, and this board has business to do, and I look forward to accomplishing it. All right, moving on to the next one, action, discussion. Would you read the agenda topic for me, please? I didn't write down all that way.
Certainly. Legal counsel briefing / concerns / issues and board responses.
Sir, it was your agenda item. You have the floor.
It is. I will remind everybody that they've had a communication from Mr. McIntyre that has attorney-client privilege they were to look at. I think we all had time now, I hope. I know I've read the whole thing. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. McIntyre to say what he feels comfortable saying regarding what he has provided us.
Thank you, Trustee Banducci. I guess if you have lived in Kootenai County for a while, you may have heard of my name. I'm pretty well known, but some people don't know me. So there are some 600 or 700 attorneys in Kootenai County, and probably 85% of them are solos. I practiced here as a solo, then I built my firm to 6 attorneys operating in 3 states. And I just lost a battle for State Attorney General to Raul Labrador. You know that he is much better known than I am, for sure. What I've done in my legal practice, it was very successful. I sold it last year. So now I'm a solo, and I was looking to retire. I'm 67. And I started looking at NIC because I used to teach here. I used to teach contracts for paralegals. And I really loved it. And I, was over in Headland building, and I enjoyed that experience. So I kind of perked my ears up. I keep hearing all these things that are going on at my local college. I'm like, what are those people doing down there? So I came to the September trustees meeting. I came to the October meeting. At the October 24 meeting, a prominent member of the community who I don't know if he'd be comfortable if I name him, so I won't, but he's not on the same political side of the aisle as me at all. But I've known him since I moved to Coeur d'Alene 17 or so years ago. And he said to me, Art, have you ever considered being the NIC attorney? And I said, no, I'm retiring. I would rather not. My wife and I have done some traveling, but but I also don't like the idea that NIC is in trouble, and it looks like it is. I then read all the materials on the NIC website about accreditation. Most of you are aware, I wrote an editorial about that. And I thought I identified some issues for consideration, and then Mick Arman wrote a piece against my editorial. You probably remember that. And he also is not on the same political side of the aisle as me. And he said, well, Art, maybe Mr. McEmber wants to be the NIC attorney. And so then I thought, well, golly, if all these folks, I'm pretty well known at the Chambers of Commerce. I've been active in the community. I'm known as a fair player. And you don't build a law practice in North Idaho the way I did by being some kind of shyster or something like that. I'm pretty hard on the law. I'm pretty much a textualist, an originalist, and I think we ought to stick with it. So you'll notice if you've read the two resolutions, what happened after that meeting is I reached out to candidates for trustee, Mr. Wagner, Ms. Sheridan, and I had already heard something about these folks. I reached out to Mr. Banducci. I said, what is going on over there? What are you guys thinking about? And he said, well, the main two things we're worried about is, legal counsel and the hiring process. And so I took it upon myself and I drafted these two resolutions. And if you read them, they may be unlike legal resolutions you see or memos you see frequently, but they're quite detailed. With the law, you have to, for NIC, you have to go to the state statutes, see what's allowed or disallowed. Then you need to go to the rules. In this case, you also have to go to NIC policies, read through all of those. And then sometimes you have to read contracts. I looked at the President McLennan's contract, then I looked at the president's contract, current president's contract, Dr. Swain. And I looked at all these things and I said, okay, well, how can I help? And so I drafted these, I brought them, I gave them to Todd, I said, here. And then on November 25, Mark Lyons resigned, which kind of shocked me. I mean, I've worked with Mark before. We've done mediations together. He does mediation now I understand it's a significant part of his practice. So he resigned, and then I thought, okay, maybe I'll just bring a fee agreement to the meeting. And I'll try to write it in a way that, it's pretty standard fee agreement, but, I didn't know if there were other attorneys they were thinking of. I don't know about that, but I thought, okay, you don't get anywhere by just sitting back and waiting for life to happen to you. So I brought the fee agreement and there it was. These guys voted me in. I've been in the job for a whole 3 days. And I immediately issued a letter which went to Mark Lyons that said, Mark, give me your file. Now, standard practice for attorneys, if I'm handling a client and the client says, oh, well, I'm not sure about this guy. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I should get a second opinion, like with a doctor, right? You do that. And a good attorney suggests you always get a second opinion, or a good doctor always suggests get a second opinion. You don't capture clients. They're free to move, and you should give them informed consent and let them do so. So, Mark left, and the standard practice is you give your file to the new attorney so they can handle the client. I mean, there's no better way to get up to speed than to get the attorney's file, because you can see all the notes, you can see all the drafts, you can see the records of the phone calls, you can see what has this guy been doing. You still have your obligations of confidentiality. You still have all your obligations of protecting the client. So I sent the letter to Mr. Lyons the next day. That was Tuesday. Yesterday, he wrote to me and he said, I don't have any original records. I don't have anything to give you. I'm not holding money in trust. Now, if you have a specific question, I'd be glad to help. And I frankly was shocked. I mean, this is unprecedented. I've taken over cases for other attorneys, whether they're in litigation or not. We did both transactional and litigation for a long time in 3 states. And the other attorney always gives up their file. Now, a lot of attorneys are cautious and, it's smart. And so they make a copy of the file before they give it to the other attorney. Then they know what they gave them. They know what they got. They know what they did. Everybody's on board. And then if there's a question in the file, then you call the other attorney, the former counsel, and you say, counsel, what's up with this? What's up with that? What Mark Lyons offered to do was to be the filter of the information. So if I run into trouble, he'll talk to me and he'll answer the questions that he thinks I need to know about what's going on at NIC. Now, I've never had an attorney do that to me ever. I think it's bad practice. In fact, I think it harms NIC because what it does is it puts me in a position of have to figure everything out from ground zero. And then only if I have a question do I go to Mark. And then Mark, who's former counsel now, then gets to say, I wonder what I should give Art so he can protect my former client. Okay, that's just flat out wrong. So I objected and, in a nice way, he said, well, I'm not going to go digging around for 20 years of records. I'm like, well, no attorney keeps 20 years of records. Mostly the state bar says keep a client's file for 5 years. And our practice has always been, you keep the file for 5 years, then you burn it onto a disk and you call the client and you say, do you want a disk or do you want the paper? If they want the paper, you truck it on out to them with all the maps or whatever it is. If they want the disk, you give them the disk. Okay, this is not rocket science. Mr. Lyons has barred me from getting anything out of his office. And so I am of the opinion now that he is working against NIC, that he does not want to see NIC succeed. Now, maybe he just wants me personally to fail. That could be. I don't know what, you can't question motivations. All you can do is say, what happened? So here's the facts. I asked for the file. I got talked to the hand. So now I'm in a problem because I need to address things that are going on at NIC. There's accreditation matters coming up and I don't have a file to work off of. So now I have to start at ground zero. So based on that, I looked at what's been alleged to have been happening at NIC, and what I've heard so far is a lot of allegations. This person this person that. If you're one of the friends of NIC, you have a whole narrative going. If you're supposedly from the other side of the aisle, then you're supposed to have another whole narrative going. Okay, this is baloney. This is not helping our community. So I'm against all that. And what I realized was there's a need for me to investigate certain things that have gone on. And so because Mr. Lyons won't give me his file and because he's just kind of leaving me and frankly the school more than me out to dry, I am going to recommend to the board that because some of these allegations that have arisen are along the lines that Ms. Zimmerman, Trustee Zimmerman was concerned about, that there were open meeting violations, specifically having to do with the hiring of our President Swain. Now, I don't know about that. I can't find out those facts until I investigate. What I did read in the minutes was that secondarily, I think it was maybe October, there was a correction to the contract classified as a scrivener's error. If you don't know what a scrivener's error is, this would be a scrivener, and I would be the scrivener if I'm scrivenering. And if I make a mistake, like I spell somebody's name wrong, or I get the PO box or the address wrong or something like that, you can go back and correct it. That's a scrivener's error. But when material terms in the contract are changed, that's not really a scrivener's error. That's genuinely a material change was made, and it's like hiding under, it's like what Justice Scalia said about regulations. Congress doesn't hide elephants in mouse holes. And you don't hide a material change to a contract inside a scrivener's error. So I need to investigate this. I'm getting no help from Mr. Lyons, but I don't know if any of you have played chess before. But if you have, you're probably familiar with something called castling. Who's familiar with castling? Anybody? Okay, so 5 or 6 or 8. Okay, so this is a move where your king is in trouble or alleged to be in trouble, and you have to do something to defend him or her. And so you castle, and you put the castle in front of the king, and you take over the territory so that you can protect your king while you're doing your defensive moves or your attack. So I need to investigate. I want to protect our president. So I am going to recommend to the board, based on everything I just said, that the board puts Dr. Swain on administrative leave, and then I can do the investigations and he will be protected. It's at full pay. It's not as if we don't expect him to ever take a vacation. Maybe it'll be like a vacation, but my point is that once I get the investigation done, then I can report back to the board what I find. My only concern is that in the meantime, college operations might be stymied. So I don't know what the board wants to do about that, but my recommendation is to castle our president, put him on administrative leave while I do my investigation. Then our president can have clean hands and say, no, I didn't impede, I didn't have anything to do with it. And then I can do my investigation, then I can get back to the board. Because remember, this accreditation thing is coming up in March. And so my personal view, if you remember my editorial, was, you know, the NIC website even said, are we going to lose accreditation? And the website said, no, not likely. Well, and then we had an election campaign where all we heard from the so-called Friends of NIC was that accreditation is on the docket and all your children are not going to go to school and federal aid will stop and all these bad things are going to happen. And I was like, wow, well, that's one way to scare the community, but we don't operate an educational institution by causing fear. And so I know this statement's a little long, Chairman, and I appreciate the time, but I just want to assure the community that the entire purpose of my recommendation is to calm things down, give everybody a little space, and cool off. And
Speak another
so-
word and you'll be taken out.
So, and I understand there will be varying opinions on this. Maybe I'll be on the top of the front page again tomorrow. I don't care. What I care is fixing NIC. So that's my recommendation. Does anybody on the board have any questions?
Hear your recommendation. Thank you. Is there any further discussion or should we call the meeting?
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Banducci.
pursuant to hearing out Mr. Mckenberg tonight, finally, actually, I think this is what he wanted to share with us earlier tonight. And reading the memorandum that we were given prior to open session, I make a motion to place Dr. Swain on immediate administrative leave effective the conclusion of this meeting. And I think we're going to have to, as part of that, well, that's my motion, place my administrative leave effective immediately after the meeting. As part of that, not the motion, but to fulfill that motion, we're going to have to allow Mr. McCumber, I think, to do his due diligence and to look at everything. And kind of sounds like he's gonna have to look, starting from scratch here a little bit. We're gonna need to preserve records. So I think unfortunately, we're gonna have to make sure that his electronics, I don't know if he has a laptop, a desktop, I don't know if he's issued a phone by the college, but those are gonna have to be preserved. I think Mr. Wardinsky's gonna have to secure his,
I believe there's a standard protocol when people go on administrative leave.
there could be, so there's some things from that side, I think from the IT side. So whatever's the appropriate, course that's taken at that time.
Okay.
So I make that motion that we will follow Mr. Mackenber's recommendation at this time as our,
Take appropriate administrative leave as deemed appropriate by the board chair. Is that fine enough? Or-
well, okay, let me, I'm still working on the motion here. Let's see here. We've done this before. So sometimes it takes a moment to formulate the motion. Okay, so, obviously I don't have this pre-written, so here we go. Trying to work on this as we go here after seeing everything.
Interesting, because it appears to me it's a rehearsed and well orchestrated performance, just like at the.
You weren't recognized and you're,
Fine, still said it.
Well, you did, but I think you give me more credit than I deserve for that. Thank you.
Touche, as you said earlier to me.
After what you did earlier, okay. All right, the motion would be to place Dr. Swain on immediate administrative leave effective the conclusion of the meeting. I would, as part of that motion, task Mr. McNamara and the board chair to work together in coordination and working through and resolving the concerns and the issues involved, and report back to the board with suggested action or options of actions.
motion to put the president on administrative leave effective the end of the meeting. As part of the motion, work with board chair and
Legal counsel.
part of the motion, President Swain solely work with. Part of the motion, President Swain solely work with the board chair and Mr. McNamara to do an investigation and report back to the board a suggested option and action options. That
Mr. McNamara, it's about this time that Mr. Lyons would kind of drive this bus a little bit and help us word these motions. If you have any suggestions to the wording of this, please feel free to.
Well, I would love the file from Mr. Lyons, but without it, I'll just say the motion sounds like to place President Swain on administrative leave for a time allowing me and the board chair to investigate things that have arisen of concern that impede our accreditation success. And that's it.
Really.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
And discussion. This would be your time to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that.
Anyone who wishes to be recognized?
Chair McKenzie, I'd like to speak if you don't mind.
Sure, I'll close this.
I am dismayed and I'm just overwhelmed with the amount of hate and anger that certain trustees have for our community. I have never understood it. and I still don't understand it. And when I hear that, accreditation is something that you really hold dear, it doesn't appear that way, because everything that I have witnessed and now am party to, it appears that your sole purpose is to undermine the college and to bring it down and to destroy the college. And I cannot understand why. I don't think anybody can really understand why. Maybe perhaps you do. I don't understand it. I wrote this comment about Dr. Swain a good week ago, but I revised it yesterday. And, I have to say that he has been hired as the president of the college, and he's obviously qualified. I don't think the contract will provide the results that you hope unless you somehow create that. And that part I just added. Dr. Swain has demonstrated a strong desire to fulfill the college mission and to do the good work necessary to rebuild the leadership that has been lost. Furthermore, my observations lead me to believe that he has a good heart. And the trustees, I implore my trustees to quit treating him like an enemy, quit treating the people like an enemy. Accreditation is an issue, and the other candidates argued that it was not an issue all day long. They never acknowledged it. That's probably why I won, because I acknowledged it and people in the community recognized that. There may be other reasons. I feel there is something nefarious going on. I'm not happy about it. I'm sure there are a lot of people that aren't happy about it, although there is really not much I can do except given the grace to speak at this moment. And with that, I thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Banducci.
it occurs to me, it's interesting how the tune changes depending on where you're sitting at the table. And I find it ironic that Trustee Zimmerman is projecting on us the very things that have been leveled at us and put towards us. And I even spoke to that the other night when I was briefly chair about who's actually doing the hating and who's not. So just, for my part, down there, Trustee Zimmerman, I certainly don't hate the community. I grew up here. I graduated from Corleen High. So that's an interesting accusation. It's been an interesting narrative and way that the people have tried to divide this community. And you asked the question, who does that? In the military, you don't shoot your allies. You don't shoot your own troops to try to win, in battle and war. But yet, our own people who supposedly love this college were ready to burn it down to the ground just because of some of them, their own personal issues just with me, but in the bigger picture about control and power of the college. And self-reported and complained and created a whole dossier on me, Mr. Stewart, I'm sure with a head nod from Ms. Wood. So for you to start, the hypocrisy for what you just said is just amazing. I don't know if there's just a lack of self-realization in what you said, or if you guys are just able just to do that and not blink. I have no idea, no conscience or no soul, but it's interesting, all the things that have been written and all the attacks. And again, I said the other night, how do you expect a sane human being to respond when all you do is call them names and denigrate them and accuse them of things and lie about them? That's not a way to bring them over to your side and want them to really work with you in a cordial way and be friendly. And again, I don't understand the mindset of the thinking. So there's so many things going on even in this region, much less nationally, at other colleges, that far exceeds whatever was going on here. And I don't think the accreditation folks would have had the time of day to worry about us if we hadn't stood there and yelled and screamed and drawn the attention to ourselves. And again, that was from the inside. And as a military guy, I know you can't win that way. And One of our founding fathers even said that, if we don't hang together, we'll certainly hang separately. Well, kind of tried to bring this on ourselves, and it was used as a weapon, to create the controversy, use the chaos. And it's come full circle again. You all were dancing in the street for about 6 months there. I hope you enjoyed the dance and the music. And now we're where we are now, right? Kind of where we started 2 years ago. Mr. Chair, I think we need to I call for the question.
Chair is getting vote. I'd like to say one thing.
Okay.
There are some
Hold off.
who claim to project hate and anger. That's quite the opposite. Accreditation looks directly at NIC's adherence to our own policies and Idaho's own laws. That's critical. Mr. Lyons only adds to the suspicion and need for this investigation by denying his records to cover up his tracks. The trust that the community puts in us trustees, there are some things we know that we simply just cannot share to the community at large. Security comes to mind for this executive session's topic as one simple example. I've worked with multiple presidents, and my experience when I first got elected provides me valuable experience to knowledgeably vote in this instance. All of us were elected to this board, and I asked the community to trust those that were elected to do what we think is best for the community and best for the college, so we can work on the mission we were assigned to do. Let's call for the question. Those in favor of putting the president on administrative leave effective end of the meeting for a time allowing Mr. McNamara and the board chair time to investigate, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 2-1.
Mr. Chair.
Trustee Banducci.
We now have a vacuum at the top of our chain of command. And it occurs to me we need to have somebody that's knows this college, has had experience with working with accreditation, someone that I think was actually a very good leader. And had you been given even the slightest chance, would have been even more successful. I have no idea if he'd even be interested. My understanding is he's currently working in Nebraska, actually, has a job there. But I'd like to nominate, no, that's not how I want to say it. I'm going to make a motion that the board chair and the board legal counsel reach out to Dr. Michael Sabali and see if he would be interested in becoming an acting president in the duration while President Swain is on administrative leave. I think he has the skill sets. He's prepared the documents for accreditation. He's briefed them. He's in person. He knows the players, Dr. Ramaswamy and the rest of the gang. I don't think there's anybody better suited at this time that I can think of that on a short notice could possibly be available, if he's even available. So I think we'd have to inquire of that, and I would propose that the board chair and the board legal counsel negotiate an appropriate contract if he is interested to come and work on an acting basis. So let me see if I can come up with a motion that's a little more succinct here. I make a motion that the board chair and the board legal counsel reach out to contact Dr. Sabali to see if he'd be willing to be the acting president and have authority between the two of them to negotiate with him an appropriate contract. to put him in place by next Monday, if at all possible. Yeah, a few days might work. So we'll shoot for Monday.
Motion that the board chair with the assistance from legal counsel to contact Dr. Sabala to see if he would be willing to be acting president and have authority to negotiate and allow the board chair and provide board chair authority to negotiate and act an acting president contract.
You have board chair and legal counsel.
Made a since we hopefully can resolve this matter quickly with an acting president.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what we probably need to do because of that. I'm sorry, I'm still working through my motion here. Apologize.
Okay.
Just, Dr. Sabali still actually works for this college, correct? So we can, because I think he's being paid out through the end of the year, if I remember correctly.
Is that true?
So as a provision, until you guys get the contract in place, we can reactivate his contract, can't we? Can we do something? I don't know what we can do. It may not matter if you can get something together by say Monday, but he's still on the books here, I'm pretty sure. I think it goes through the end of this year.
It's late to call human resources.
It is a little late to call human resources.
May I suggest provide negotiating acting president contract / board consultant contract.
Okay.
Accreditation board consultant contract. Acting president / board consultant contract.
McEnroe, if you have any thoughts on the wording, please feel free to assist. It's a little late.
It looks pretty
Doing it on the
straightforward
fly.
to me. You're just making a motion to have me and the board chair figure out the employment status of Sabali and fill in the blanks, and then contact him to see if he wants to undertake a consulting contract and an acting president contract for some undetermined amount of time.
Now, this is not part of the motion, but I would think that the board, within the next couple days, would need to be notified if he is interested. And then you guys can work through that. If he is not, then we'll have to consider trying to do something fairly quickly next week to name someone else. I think we'll be okay Friday and the weekend, but get into early next week, we'd have to consider what that looks like, or if it falls to maybe Mr. Dooman, I'm not sure. Have something put together.
Did you write down the motion?
Motion, what I have is motion that the board chair with assistance with legal counsel to contact Dr. Sabali to see if he would be willing to be acting president and provide the board chair authority to negotiate an acting president and or board consulting contract.
That would be board chair and legal counsel in concert somewhere in there. I don't know if I heard you guys both, but you guys probably should be working together on this, Mr.
With
McNamara.
assistance from legal counsel.
Okay. He has some wisdom that he would have that the rest of us wouldn't.
All right, do we have a second on that motion? I'll speak. Actually, I will second that motion.
Yes, you would need a second for discussion.
So we're on to discussion. Would anyone like to say anything?
Chairman McKenzie, I'd like to say something.
Yes, you're recognized.
I have to say, this process that I hear is just hypocritical completely. We talked about a good hiring practice and, you know, the hiring practice of going out and getting an agency of AGB who goes out and finds, you know, qualified candidates to step into a role, and then they narrow it down, and then we select, or whoever it is that's in charge selects from a number and narrows it down even further. And then we narrow the selection process until we find one. You had exception with that. Like, there was something wrong with that sort of process.
I do forgive that what we say in executive session should stay in executive session.
My apologies. I will not do that again. Going forward, this process of hiring, your best friend is just, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Your best friend, so if Sabali's not available, who are you going to go to? Your next bestie and your next bestie and your next bestie? He was put in that role in the first place because he was your best friend or something like that. I don't believe he was a qualified candidate. I think the rain is coming. The state's gonna come. We're gonna have the whole same dog and pony show that you talked about before. But I'm sorry, that's all I have.
Any other trustees that wish to say something? I have something I'd like to say. Dr. Sabali has endured more slander and more unfair treatment because of his selection that was hashed out in executive session. What people don't know is he has his doctorate in educational leadership with his specialty in board governance, exactly what this accreditation agency warned us on to improve on. That is one of the key reasons why he was chosen, because this board needed help. I was there in that executive session, and I'm happy to say that. So, while he was painted as merely the wrestling coach in the press, without providing his full qualifications or recognition that he's actually a doctorate, they called him Mr. Sabali repeatedly. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. So you're saying you want to evaluate Dr. Sabali, and then if that comes,
Dr. Swain. What? Evaluating Dr. Swain or Dr.?
no, you want to talk to, communicate with Dr. Sabali, and then you want to go ahead and hire. Is that correct?
What my actions after following this motion would be to reach out to Dr. Sabali and see if he would be willing to assist this institution, college, one more time while this review is going on. Yes.
So my understanding is that this is not a hiring motion. It is a reach out, contact, try to see if he'd be willing to undertake a contract. But then we have to come back to the board, I would imagine, to get any approvals on a hiring. And I just also want to point out that, we don't care what people think, and we don't care what you feel. What we care about is your conduct, what you do. Okay, conduct is what matters. So what conduct matters is that we need to protect our president. We still need to run the college, and we have a short time frame till March for accreditation. And if any of you know Mark Lyons, tell him to give me his darn file, because he's impeding this whole process.
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry, that's all I have.
Mr. Chair.
Trustee Banducci.
Clarification. I think my motion included, not just through the, overture to reach out and see if he would be willing to step into the position, but gave authority to you and legal counsel to come up with a contract and you can bring that back to the board. But I think we need to see not only if he wants to do it, but then try to put something together, a proposal for him to do that. I think those need to be together.
Yes, come back at the next meeting of the Board of Trustees with a proposal of.
Well, I think we're gonna have to do something early next week. I think we need to have a notice, a special meeting, and then if we have to do it by in person or Zoom or whatever, but we need to have something to approve the contract if we can come up with something, if he takes the position. Otherwise, we're looking at till the 19th, and I don't think we can have that vacuum of leadership for that long.
I agree.
I think tomorrow we need to well, first I think we need to reach out and find out if he's interested. If he is, then we need to post something for potentially Monday and then have a meeting, and that gives 3 days to see if you guys can pull something together for a contract.
All right. I think that should work. And all right, we shall read the motion. Motion of the board chair with assistance with legal counsel to contact Dr. Sabali to see if he'd be willing to be acting president and provide the board chair authority to negotiate an acting president and our board consultant contract.
With assistance from the legal counsel.
With assistance. Is that
Again,
I think that captures it.
okay? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those against say nay.
Nay.
The motion passes. And the agenda, any more topics of discussion? I believe we are done.
That should be the end of the special meeting.
Okay. The meeting is adjourned.